Hello and welcome back to the Karma Stories podcast. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today I have two stories for you from the EntitledParents subreddit. Before we start today, make sure to check out my 3D printing website, dangly3d.com, where you can pick up your very own Carmen Chameleon 3D printed Karma Stories channel mascot. And yes, it comes with those cookies that I've been bribing you with to subscribe for 6 years now. The price has recently been reduced to around $10 US, so jump onto the website and check them out for yourself. That's dangly3d.com. Alright, on to today's Entitled Parents. Let's jump right in. This story comes to us from DMG5620. Ex-stepmom feels entitled to a relationship with me after 6 years of no contact and ruining my childhood after she got in trouble with a preacher for lying. YouTube lurker, first-time poster. If this is wrong, please tell me, but after several years, I was advised to finally tell this story to people that aren't in my small town, and know this absolutely entitled TWAT. Obligatory this happened years ago, but still followed me for ages after. I, 24 female, am a child of divorce. My biological parents split when I was 4 years old. My mother started dating again when I was 7 to a wonderful man, and I love him to death. But my absolute idiot of a father dated several women between the time I was 4 to 8. Half of that time he was in and out of my life as it was, but that's not what this is about. This is about his last girlfriend, his wife, prior to his death. My stepmother, who I unaffectionately call my ex-stepbee, walked into my life after she met my dad while she was in a woman's rehab group in my hometown, where my dad and his Christian rock band played. Very Bible Belt area of the southwestern US. I've always struggled with the women and girls who came into my life, due in large part to the relentless mockery I experienced over the outrageous name he gave me. Making matters worse, his first girlfriend, after he left my mother, treated my little sister and me in a terrible way when we were very young. Not to mention that the reason he and my mother divorced was because he was constantly on substances. So I was very, very aware of what her rehab group was for, which made my skepticism even worse. She showed up one day when I was 8.5. I remember because it was summer and my birthday was in January. It was my dad's week, 50-50 custody, and dad was going to take me and my sister to our uncle's house to go swimming. But we were waiting for Step B. It was that day that dad told me and my, at the time, 7-year-old sister that they were dating and had been for 3 months, without saying anything to us. For minor context, my dad screamed at my mom for not telling him that she was dating someone, so there were issues in that for me. I distinctly remember looking at my dad, then at Step B, then back at dad, and her again, until I pointed at her and told my dad, she's going to do something bad. This was the beginning of our dynamic. Fast forward to not only my dad getting married to this woman, but me being used by her as a test subject for her psychology degree. She never finished this, by the way. I was 11 at this time, and playing in my bedroom with my sister and cousin waiting for lunch after church on Super Bowl Sunday of 2012. My sister and cousin were on the computer that was in my room because we didn't have enough TVs. They were playing Movie Star Planet, which was all the rage at the time, and were using the camera feature. When the flash went off, I started to feel funny to say the least. So much so that I started seeing red dots everywhere. I told the two of them, and my cousin made the joke that I was about to have a seizure. And to my surprise, he was right. Now, this next part I don't have much memory of, other than stories from my sister, cousin, and dad telling me after I came to. Apparently, the two of them ran downstairs to get a drink, leaving me on the bed until my dad came upstairs to get me for lunch. Apparently, I was having a full grand mal seizure out of nowhere, and my dad did everything he could think of to keep me from hurting myself while calling 911. I remember waking up a little in the ambulance and my dad telling me I was okay and I should go back to sleep, which I did. Next I knew, I heard noises, one of those being "Touchdown, Patriots," and my dad cheering. The first thing I said after waking up was asking if he was watching the Super Bowl without me. That's when the room exploded. It was the first time since I was very young that my mom and dad were in the same room, and not screaming at each other. Not the last, but that's a different story. I remember looking around after my eyes adjusted to see I was in a white room, a hospital room, still in my church dress that I was going to change out after lunch and before the game. My mom and dad called the doctor back in to check on me, and I was scheduled for so many different appointments after that, including a sudden re-entry to the hospital because we found out I was allergic to the seizure meds they gave me while I was unconscious. This part was told to me years later by my mother when I was about 17. Apparently, while I was passed out and getting tests done, Step B, instead of checking on me, called our pastor to pray over me. He was a good man, but I now have nothing to do with the Christian faith because of Step B and my dad. But because it was a smaller hospital and involved a child, it was only direct family allowed inside the room with me. Step B told the hospital staff that she was my biological mother. We looked nothing alike, and she was 28 while I was 11. When my real mom showed up, the pastor who was outside the room told her it was family only, and when she told him that she was my mother, and thankfully one of the nurses that showed up was a friend of my mom's, she was let in, and Step B was kicked out. From what I'm told, Step B got yelled at by our pastor for lying to him about my mother not having anything to do with me or my sister, when in fact she was very involved in our lives. Heck, I was supposed to go to her house that day after she got off work, which was conveniently right after the Super Bowl. Anyway, after I was released from the hospital and my mom took me home to her house, things were okay. I was off school for a week because the seizure came out of nowhere, and my primary wanted to have me come in every other day for checkups just in case. Things changed, however, when I went back to my dad's. I had gotten off school after my first day back, and while I'm doing my chores, which was washing dishes that day, Step B came into the kitchen while my dad was in their bedroom playing WoW and told me that it was all my fault that the church is mad at her and she hated me for it. Again, I'm 11, and this 28-year-old woman is blaming me for her getting in trouble with a man she lied to. Not to mention that she and my dad would tell me anytime I was sick after the seizure, it was all in my head. Or, you're overreacting, your pain can't be hospital level. My dad was a Navy veteran, so he always used that line whenever I was hurting, not realizing that medication I had been taking for years made my pain tolerance severely low. Ironically though, they were sort of right, explained further down. Since that day, we absolutely despised each other to the point that no matter what I did, I was getting Bible thumped. Even going so far as to make me late for an assignment for my freshman English class in high school because I made the mistake of claiming Greek mythology made more sense to me than the Bible. This still holds true to this day. I'm a practicing Norse pagan moon Wiccan. She even got so insecure about my blatant hatred of her that she asked me to show her my messages between me and my counselor that I was assigned because of attempts to hurt myself. I was 14 at that time, and even I, someone who at the time was studying forensic science and had an unhealthy obsession with criminal minds and law and order, knew that was illegal as heck and told my counselor about it at our next session. That nonsense got shut down very fast. Thankfully, she's been mostly out of my life since I was 17 when my father died of an OD and withdrawal-induced heart attack. She and my father had apparently been on substances again, big shocker, and a personal I told you so on my part, and subjecting me and my sister to the fumes, which made me violently ill for several months, and we don't know why until my dad passed. The last time I saw her was 6 months after he passed when I turned 18, and I got the one thing of my dad's that I wanted, which was a 12-string electric guitar. Big music family. However, this wasn't the last time she tried to make contact with me. Recently, while I was in college, already stressed out because of more health issues that stem from the seizure incident and the sudden death of one of my dad's 4 sons, Step B started to spam my Facebook Messenger asking how I was doing, if school was going good, all this kind of crap, only to yell at me for coming out as a demigirl, semi-non-binary that leans toward the feminine side. I was using they, them at the time, and she called me an abomination, which was strange because I didn't tell her or anyone else about this outside of my college friends, who were on the other side of the country from where she was back in my home state. Apparently, my one brother, who still has contact with her for some reason, told her about me, asking to be called sibling on our brother's obituary, thinking I still talk to this woman like my sister did occasionally. He was fully aware I hated her with a burning passion, but not exactly why. I'm not close with any of my brothers for various reasons, but that's besides the point. Step B was tormenting me over the phone while I was studying for finals before returning home to get medical tests done. Come to find out, I have epilepsy, autism, and a vein malformation in my brain that nobody cared to check after my seizure because the neurologist I saw in my home state at the time was an idiot and claimed I had the seizure due to low blood sugar, which come to find out is a massive side effect of the epilepsy and the malformation. I do have a blood sugar issue, but when I seize, it gets dangerously low due to a plethora of other issues, hormone and chemical-wise, in my messed up body. I now have to go to the capital of my home state after dropping out of college because of insurance issues and have a consultation with a neurosurgeon to see if they're going to put me through radiation or just cut the malformation out of my brain. I went to Facebook in order to warn anyone on either side of my family since my epilepsy was genetic and I'm the first to have it on either side, as well as update my cousins who I still have contact with in that part of the state if they wanted to visit. Step B commented saying I should go see her instead. I nearly screamed. I was so mad that she was still acting all lovey-dovey to me, but thankfully my boyfriend was able to calm me down enough not to do something stupid and commented himself that if any of my family wanted to stay in contact with me, they will keep Step B away from any information on my location and life. So far, only my uncle, my dad's last living sibling, and his sons are the only ones who still keep regular contact with me or my sister from my dad's side. I have little contact with my mom's family my entire life other than one of my two brothers on her side. I have my fingers crossed that the situation gets better before I lose my whole mind, but I have a feeling she won't come anywhere near me or our hometown because of how many bridges she's burnt here by hurting me and my sister. Small town, lots of motorcycle bikers who happen to be family to us. I apologize for how long this is, I just had to rant. She's been ruining my life on and off since I was a kid, and I hope with this, I can now have some peace away from her while I deal with everything. I am eternally grateful to my boyfriend for keeping me sane during all this stuff, as well as my younger sister and stepdad, who have been helping me with appointments and paying for my medication while I work on getting my disability processed. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called EnoughAttention430. It says, I'm sorry that you have endured all of this, but I have to wonder why you didn't block her years ago. You owe her nothing, and she is a nothing. OP responded and said, I didn't want to stir the pot more. Though the funny part is, I'm not friends with her on Facebook, my sister and dad's family are, and since one cousin was tagged, she saw the post. I don't use Facebook that much, other than to watch reels and send stupid videos to my boyfriend, so I avoid it as much as possible. But I wanted to see my cousins after all this time. Another user down below called Maleficent and Skirsh said, Yikes, go no contact with her in a more permanent fashion. Block her from your phone and all of your social media, along with anyone else that's not on your side. If you have to, you might need to get a restraining order. OP responded and said, she's completely blocked and she doesn't have my number at all. My family were informed by my uncle that if they want any contact with me and my life, they'll have to go through him for the time being, until I'm post-evaluation, thankfully. Really, the only thing we can do in this situation is agree with both of the commenters that OP needs to stay completely no contact with Step B, because that person is just a toxic scourge on their life. Therapy is definitely a good idea to process through all of this stuff from the past, and to help you move on to a future where you don't need contact with any of those people. This story comes to us from Endkeeper. No, Shadow isn't for sale. So this happened a few months ago, a couple days after Christmas to be exact. I'm autistic, 22 female, and I've had a lifelong special interest in Sonic the Hedgehog. It's been a deep obsession my entire life, so of course, the new movie was a huge deal for me. Adding on to this, one of my favorite characters from the franchise is Shadow, because of course he is. For Christmas this year, I received the gift set of his Build-A-Bear, Voice Box, Chaos Emerald, and the actual plush. He was given to me unstuffed because we wanted to stuff him in store for the sake of old times. I was a big Build-A-Bear kid, apparently. We had a family friend who was a manager there and would give me bears. Now, many of you may not know this, but this particularly Build-A-Bear is in high demand right now. He was essentially sold out everywhere once the movie had released, and people are still desperately awaiting a restock. So I was incredibly lucky to get Shadow, especially the gift set, which I'm deeply thankful for. So with that backstory in mind, my family was going out to Texas to visit family right after Christmas. So we took the unstuffed Shadow along and planned to get him stuffed at the local mall's Build-A-Bear store. My younger cousin in high school tagged along to buy some bluey Build-A-Bear plushies for her friend as a late Christmas gift. We get there and notice a long line. This Build-A-Bear only had the stuffing and naming machines, so there wasn't any of the other typical Build-A-Bear process things. Though I didn't mind much, I was just happy to get Shadow stuffed. Since we knew it'll be a wait, my cousin grabs the two she planned to get, and we hurried into the stuffing line, deciding to look at the accessories after. It's noteworthy that this store had nothing Sonic related, and it especially didn't have Shadow himself. I noticed a couple kids staring, but brushed it off, and once I overheard a mother a ways away behind me, in line, telling her kid they didn't have Sonic. I didn't think much of that either. At this moment, I was sort of holding the stuffingless Shadow in my arms when a random lady walks out of line, up to me, and grabs his ear tightly. "Ma'am, where did you get this?" Slightly startled, I said, "Oh, he was online." Now, I wasn't sure exactly what I was expecting, but it sure wasn't for this woman to, in complete silence, step back and glare me down. No words were said, but I've worked in a fast food establishment that had a reputation of being slow, and I had never received a glare harder than this one. I'm still half convinced that this woman was attempting to blow my head into bits or something. I sort of gave her a confused look in response, because I had expected at least a begrudging thanks, though I suppose not everyone was raised on manners. After a solid 30 seconds of her glaring, this woman walked back to her daughter and husband in line, and the entire time she continued to glare daggers at me, not taking her eyes off me. Naturally, I was getting kinda weirded out. This woman was probably in her 40s or so, and she was glaring down a girl in her 20s over a Build-A-Bear. I glanced over to my cousin and saw that she was returning this dirty look in an attempt to get this lady to stop staring at us. The line moves forward, and it's almost our turn to get the plushies stuffed. Right as we're waiting for our turn, this woman's husband walks right up to us, and yes, she was still glaring us down at this point. "Hey, is Shadow for sale? I'll give you $100 right now." No, sorry." "Are you sure? Are you sure?" "Yeah, sorry." The husband stepped back with a confused expression and returned to his wife and daughter. Wife still glaring, but worse. We got Shadow, Bluey, and Bingo all stuffed, got those little adoption certificate things, and my cousin ended up buying Shadow a wedding dress, as I had told her about the videos of people putting him in dresses. Once we went to pay, we took one last look to see this woman was still glaring daggers at us. So we paid and got the heck out of there. This story is relatively anticlimactic, but I think considering the circumstances, it's still a funny one. It's definitely the first Karen or entitled parent I've encountered out in the wild, which feels way different than encountering them at work. I've told a few friends this story, and they pointed out that she was probably planning to snatch him had I not mentioned he was already paid for, which is annoying to think about. Luckily, Shadow is safe at home and well cared for. I'm glad I have him, and I really hope they do a restock of him soon so other fans can get him. OP added 2 edits down at the bottom. The first one says, "Quick edit," adding on that I genuinely cannot begin to describe how hard this woman was glaring at me. This lady had the rage of 100,000 suns and counting. Her eyes showed pure, unbridled hatred and rage. She might as well have been like the guy from The Boys, I don't know, I've never seen the show, shooting laser eyes that blow my head into tiny bits and pieces. If looks could kill, I would have been burnt to a charred crisp 12 times over. OP's second edit says, "For the two people dismissing my story, no, they didn't leave us alone. Staring and glaring somebody down continuously isn't leaving somebody alone. As multiple people have stated, they probably would have acted out more had I not been with my mom and cousin. Just because they didn't directly try to steal him or put hands on me doesn't mean the mom wasn't being a butthole. Sorry my story isn't as dramatic as some other stories on the sub, but if you were seriously so underwhelmed by my story, maybe move on instead of commenting. Thanks." Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Venus Bitch. It says, "I was so scared for your shadow plush the entire time reading this story. So glad he's okay. A roommate's dog destroyed a collectible plushie of mine not even a month after I got it, so I feel very strongly about special plushes." OP responded and said, "Oh my gosh, no, I'm so sorry. And yeah, I'm really glad he's safe. I'm really glad I was able to get him when others haven't been so lucky. I'm surprised Build-A-Bear hasn't restocked him yet, honestly." Okay, so does anybody else think that the husband going up to OP to offer money for the shadow was because they knew their wife was going to cause a problem if they didn't say something? Like, I feel if it was just OP without family members and just that woman without her family members in the line, that she would have taken this a lot further. Maybe even claiming that OP had stolen it right out of her hands or something like that. But I'm sure once they got up to the person doing the stuffing and OP would say, "You guys don't even have this in stock," that the whole issue would have been worked out there. So yeah, I can kind of agree that the whole story was a little bit anticlimactic, but it still works for Entitled Parents. If you enjoy daily Reddit stories, I encourage you to follow and give us a rating on your podcasting platform of choice. And if you're watching and listening on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button and drop a like on the video. It really helps us out. I thank you for watching and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.